This adventurous story begins by showing a great king named Qin. Qin had the largest army, and he had never lost a war. Whenever Qin wanted to conquer a kingdom, he would invade and attack, killing the opposing ruler, and automatically taking control of their kingdom. In the same way, Qin was now leading his massive army toward an enemy kingdom. After traveling for some time, he arrived at his destination. The king of the enemy kingdom approached him and asked the reason for his arrival. Qin declared to his enemy, "I want your kingdom. If you try to stop me, there will be a great war, and I will kill all of you and take the kingdom for myself." However, the opposing king was not one to surrender so easily. A heated argument broke out between them. To settle the matter, Qin proposed a challenge: "We will each send our strongest warrior to fight. Whoever wins will rule the kingdom." The enemy king agreed to the terms and summoned his mightiest warrior. This warrior was massive and terrifying, as if no one could stand against him. Seeing his incredible strength, the enemy king and his soldiers laughed at Qin, doubting whether he had anyone strong enough to match their warrior. But Qin appeared very confident. He called upon his best soldier, named Ellis. However, for some unknown reason, Ellis did not show up. After waiting for a long time, Qin became the subject of ridicule because even his own soldier was not obeying him. The enemy king mocked Qin, saying that it seemed like he had already lost. But after a short while, Ellis finally arrived. Furious, Qin yelled at him for not coming on time. However, Ellis valued his self-respect above all else. When Qin scolded him, he turned to leave. Realizing that Ellis was the only warrior who could secure his victory, Qin quickly requested him to stay. Ellis agreed and prepared to fight the enemy warrior. On one side stood Ellis, and on the other, the enormous warrior from the opposing kingdom. As per the agreement, they were to fight one-on-one. But to everyone's shock, Ellis defeated the giant soldier in a single strike. Now, Ellis boldly challenged the entire enemy army, asking if anyone else had the courage to fight him. But none of them dared to step forward, for they had already witnessed his immense power. Now, even the enemy king realized that he could not defeat Ellis. This meant he had no choice but to submit to Qin. The king approached Ellis and offered him his sword as a sign of surrender, since Ellis was the one who had defeated his strongest soldier. However, Ellis refused to take the sword because he did not serve under anyone. Ellis had a lot of attitude, and rightfully so. He had honed his skills to perfection. Without saying much, Ellis walked away. Meanwhile, Qin successfully took over yet another kingdom. With Ellis's help, Qin continued winning numerous battles. Now, the story shifts to a kingdom named Troy, ruled by a king who had two sons. The elder one was named Hector, and the younger one was Milton. Hector, much like Ellis, was a brave warrior who had fought many wars to expand his kingdom. At this time, Troy was facing intense conflicts with a neighboring kingdom. However, Hector and Milton did not want war. Instead, they decided to negotiate peace and traveled to the neighboring kingdom for discussions. Surprisingly, they were welcomed warmly, treated like esteemed guests. This proved that there would be no war between them. Here, we are introduced to the neighboring king's wife, who was extraordinarily beautiful. The moment Milton saw her, he was stunned. It seemed like he had fallen madly in love with her. After completing all the formalities, Hector and Milton left with their soldiers and returned to Troy. However, Hector had no idea that his brother, Milton, had secretly kidnapped the enemy king's wife and brought her with him. After some time, Milton was forced to reveal the truth to his brother. Hector was furious. Just moments ago, they had shaken hands with the neighboring king in a peace agreement, and now, Milton had kidnapped his wife. This would undoubtedly lead to war. Hector insisted that they return the king's wife immediately. But Milton refused, claiming, "She loves me too. Wherever we go together." Seeing his brother's stubbornness, Hector could no longer stop him. He decided to take the enemy king's wife and return to their kingdom. When the enemy king learned about this, he was furious. That king was none other than Qin's brother. Qin, who had also arrived by then, overheard everything. His brother was determined to attack Troy and reclaim his wife. Qin, too, desired the Troy Empire for himself, so he decided to support his brother. However, his brother warned him, "You will not win this war unless Ellis fights alongside you." Determined to bring Ellis into the battle, Qin sent his soldiers to persuade him. However, Ellis was not one to fight at someone else's command. He only fought when he wished. He already disliked Qin because Qin only thought about his own benefit. So, even after being repeatedly requested, Ellis refused to join them. Qin kept sending his soldiers to convince Ellis, hoping to change his mind. Now, Ellis was forced to consider whether he should participate in the war or not. To seek guidance, he went to his mother for advice. Ellis's mother warned him, "This war is going to be immense. There is no guarantee that you will return alive if you go. But then she added, "If you die in this battle, your name will be written in golden letters in history. You will be remembered forever in books." Her words left a deep impression on Ellis. What decision he would make next remained to be seen. Meanwhile, Kin and his brother, along with a massive army, set out by sea to attack the Troy Empire. On the other side, Hector was speaking with his father, insisting that they should return the enemy king's wife. But the king disagreed. He explained to Hector, "She came with us willingly. No one had forced her. Milton and the enemy king's wife were in love, and the king did not want to break their hearts." Hector once again tried to convince his father, warning him that Kin and his brother were extremely dangerous. They had a massive army that could attack at any moment. However, his father refused to listen. The reason for the king's confidence was the massive walls surrounding their kingdom. He was certain that no matter how large an army approached, they would never be able to break through the walls and invade. He kept reassuring Hector of their safety. But deep down, Hector was uneasy. He feared that even these walls might betray them one day, and when that happened, countless lives in their kingdom would be lost. Thinking about all this, he became increasingly tense. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kin's massive army was advancing through the sea toward Troy. Suddenly, King Kin and his soldiers spotted someone unexpected. Ellis had arrived. But Ellis did not come with Kin's army. Instead, he marched forward alone with only a small team by his side. Kin was confused. He could not understand what was going on in Ellis's mind. But before Kin could react, Ellis fearlessly landed on the shore and charged at Troy's soldiers, engaging them in battle. He was alone, facing thousands of enemy soldiers. Yet, with unmatched courage and strength, he cut through the battlefield, defeating enemies as he advanced. From their ships, Kin's soldiers watched in awe. Seeing Ellis fight so fiercely, they began cheering for him. Soon, Ellis's name was on everyone's lips. Witnessing this, King Kin felt frustrated. It was always the same. Every victory he had ever claimed had only been possible because of Ellis. Kin might have been the ruler of the empire, but all his successes were nothing more than gifts that Ellis had handed to him. Everyone respected Ellis. But no one respected Kin. And that was why, at that moment, Kin's hatred for Ellis burned stronger than ever. Kin slaughtered all the soldiers on the shore and took control of the treasures for himself. After a while, Hector appeared before Ellis. But Ellis told him, "Our real battle will be tomorrow. That's when our armies will face each other, and we will decide which kingdom emerges victorious." Hector agreed and returned to his troops, who had decided to stay near the shore. Later, when Hector entered a tent, he discovered that his men had captured a woman. She was none other than Hector's cousin, Mira. Mira was crying uncontrollably. Through her tears, she warned Hector, "You will pay for this." Ellis approached Mira and looked at her closely. "Aren't you afraid of me?" he asked. Mira shook her head and replied, "You are not wrong. You are just doing your duty." Ellis understood her words and immediately freed her. From her mannerisms and appearance, Ellis realized that Mira belonged to a royal family. She had lived a life of luxury and privilege. At that moment, a messenger informed Ellis that King Kin was summoning him. Without hesitation, Ellis headed toward Kin's tent. As soon as Ellis arrived, he noticed that Kin looked furious. Kin lashed out at him. "Why are you always so arrogant?" he shouted. He was enraged that Ellis had attacked the enemy without waiting for his orders. But Ellis simply replied, "Take all the treasure I have claimed. I don't want any of it." This only angered Kin even more. He didn't care about riches, all he wanted was respect. He wanted every soldier to chant his name. He wanted absolute power. But because of Ellis, that was never happening. Determined to break Ellis, Kin ordered his soldiers to bring Mira. Before Ellis's eyes, Kin's men began torturing her. Ellis could not tolerate it any longer. He drew his sword and ordered them to step back. But Mira pleaded with him, "Don't risk your life for me." Watching this exchange, King Kin smirked. Now, it was clear to him, Ellis had feelings for Mira. King Kin smirked and declared, "This girl will serve me tonight." Ellis clenched his fists in anger, but Kin was the king, he couldn't just kill him. Furious and helpless, Ellis stormed out of the tent. He sat alone in his own tent, lost in thought, his heart filled with rage and sorrow. Just then, a few of his soldiers arrived, urging him to join the upcoming battle. But Ellis refused. "I will not fight for these people," he declared. Not only that, he even advised his soldiers not to participate in the war. Ellis was fearless and highly skilled, that's why most armies saw him as their true leader. The next day, Hector and Melton stood at the gates of Troy with their entire army, prepared to defend their kingdom. From the other side, King Kin and his brother arrived with a massive force. Before the battle began, the two rulers met in the middle, attempting to negotiate. But Kin's brother made it clear, "Your brother Melton kidnapped my wife. I challenge him to a duel. The one who wins gets to keep her." Melton accepted the challenge without hesitation. However, King Kin had other plans. He didn't just want revenge, he wanted Troy itself. So he secretly ordered his brother, kill him. Make sure he doesn't survive. And so, the duel began. On one side stood Melton. On the other, Kin's brother. Their swords clashed violently as they fought to the death. At one point, Melton grew weak. Seeing his opponent falter, Kin's brother moved in for the final blow. But before he could strike, Hector arrived. Furious at the betrayal, Hector grabbed his sword and killed the ruthless king on the spot. This was exactly what Kin wanted. Now, he had the perfect excuse to attack. Without hesitation, Kin roared, "Kill them all!" His massive army surged forward, launching a brutal assault on Troy. But unfortunately, Ellis was not with them. His absence had a huge impact on the soldiers, as they lacked motivation without him. Because of this, they were being killed in large numbers. Many soldiers started retreating in fear because they believed that their mission was to bring back their king's wife. But now that their king was dead, fighting any further seemed meaningless to them. Due to all these reasons, King Kin's army began to suffer a terrible defeat, while the kingdom of Troy successfully defended itself with great strength. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the riverside, where some men were seen torturing Mira. They believed that anyone who belonged to the royal family was their enemy. Because of this, they treated Mira very cruelly. But at that moment, Ellis made a dramatic entry. Without hesitation, he killed all the soldiers torturing Mira and rescued her, taking her back to his tent. Ellis had promised Mira that he would not let anything happen to her. Because of this, Mira felt completely safe with him. It was at this moment that Mira began to realize that Ellis was different from the rest. He had compassion, and unlike the others, he was a noble and righteous soldier. However, despite everything, later that night, when Ellis was asleep, Mira took a knife and moved toward him with the intent to kill him. But Ellis already knew what she was about to do. Without any fear, he told her, "Kill me if you must. But if I survive, I swear I will destroy all enemy soldiers." Mira hesitated and stopped in her tracks. She realized that a brave and honorable soldier like him did not deserve to be killed. At that moment, Ellis made her another promise. He vowed that he would not fight against her kingdom and would leave that very night. True to his word, Ellis boarded a boat along with a few soldiers, packed his belongings, and set sail to leave. However, just then, an important revelation was made. Ellis' younger brother was also a part of the war. Ellis' brother looked exactly like him, as if they were identical twins. However, unlike Ellis, his brother was determined to fight against the kingdom of Troy. He even tried to convince Ellis to join him, but Ellis had already made his decision. Now, things took an interesting turn. Ellis' younger brother, carrying Ellis' very own sword, marched toward the battlefield alongside the soldiers to attack the kingdom of Troy. The rest of the soldiers, unaware of the truth, mistook him for Ellis himself. This is why a new kind of energy surged within them. Everyone rushed forward and began fighting the enemy soldiers. When Hector reached Ellis' brother, he brutally killed him. Hector believed that he had slain the great soldier Ellis himself. However, when he removed the helmet, he was shocked to discover that it was actually Ellis' younger brother. A short while later, when Ellis learned about his brother's death, he was consumed with rage. Without hesitation, he stood alone before the entire Trojan Empire and challenged Hector to a duel. The battle between them was fierce, with both warriors fighting with all their might. However, in the end, Ellis emerged victorious and killed Hector. As an act of revenge, Ellis dragged Hector's dead body along with him. He was devastated by his brother's death and regretted not joining the army earlier. He realized that had he fought alongside his brother, perhaps he could have saved him. Soon after, Hector's father arrived, requesting his son's dead body. He wished to give Hector a proper funeral. Ellis, still burning with anger, confronted the king and asked, "Are you not afraid? I can kill you right here and now." But the old king, filled with grief, replied, "My eldest son is dead. I have nothing left to fear anymore." Hearing these words, Ellis softened. He understood the depth of the king's sorrow and ultimately decided to return Hector's body. The pain of losing his own brother helped him empathize with the Trojan king's suffering. Not only that, but Ellis also returned Mira to the Trojans. Before leaving, he made a promise to Troy's king, "We will not attack you for the next 12 days. But after 12 days, we will return to claim your empire." With that, Ellis and his army returned to their kingdom. Meanwhile, when King Kin heard about Ellis' actions and decisions, he was shocked. Who is Ellis to make such decisions on his own, he wondered. Time passed, and soon, 12 days were over. The scene now shifted to the Trojan Empire, where their king stood with his soldiers. As they looked around, they saw the battlefield littered with fallen soldiers. However, in the middle of it all, there was a giant wooden horse standing there. The Trojan king was puzzled. Where has Kin's army disappeared to? Why have they left this wooden horse behind? The people of Troy believed that King Kin and his soldiers had attacked their sacred religious sites, and that is why they had been punished. And just like that, all of them perished together. The king of Troy and his people were overjoyed, believing that their kingdom had been saved. They thought they had nothing to worry about anymore. As a symbol of their victory, they began pulling the massive wooden horse into their city. Everyone celebrated, convinced that the enemies who had attacked them were now dead. The enormous wooden horse was placed in the city's center, and after a long day of rejoicing, the Trojans retired to their homes, completely unaware of the danger that lurked inside. Little did they know that the horse was not empty. Hidden inside were Ellis and a group of his bravest warriors, who had carefully devised this plan. As night fell, they silently emerged from the wooden horse and spread throughout the city. Their first move was to unlock the gates of Troy. On the other side, Ellis signaled to Kin, who was waiting with his massive army. Without delay, Kin and his soldiers stormed into the city. By the time the Trojan soldiers realized what was happening, it was already too late. The enemy had taken control, slaughtering them mercilessly. Chaos erupted as soldiers and citizens alike fell before Kin's ruthless army. Kin, known for his cruelty, wasted no time in killing the Trojan king. Without a shred of mercy, he struck him down instantly, not caring about his old age or his helpless state. Outside, Ellis and his warriors fought with unmatched bravery. This time, Ellis was by their side, and his presence alone seemed to give them extraordinary strength. His leadership fueled their determination, allowing them to overpower their enemies one by one. Amidst the destruction, Mira was shown praying, pleading for the safety of her people. But then, Kin found her. With his usual arrogance, he attempted to mistreat her. However, Mira had prepared for such a moment. She had hidden a knife for her protection. As Kin moved closer, she swiftly slashed his throat. Blood poured from his wound as he collapsed, dying instantly. Mira tried to escape, but before she could get far, some soldiers captured her. They were about to kill her when Ellis arrived just in time. With deadly precision, he eliminated the two men holding her captive. Ellis, deeply concerned for Mira's safety, urged her to leave at once. "This place is going to be destroyed. You must get out of here," he warned. The fall of Troy was now inevitable. Just then, Hector's younger brother, Melton, arrived. Seeing his cousin Mira standing close to Ellis, he panicked. Was Ellis trying to harm her? Without thinking twice, Melton pulled out his bow and fired an arrow straight at Ellis' leg. Ellis groaned in pain but remained standing. Even with his injury, he moved forward, determined to protect Mira. But Melton, filled with rage and fear, did not stop. He continued shooting arrow after arrow, each one striking Ellis' body. Wounds covered him, and blood seeped from every injury. Yet, even as his body was pierced with arrows, Ellis refused to fall. Ellis had grown extremely weak. His condition had worsened to the point where he was now on the verge of death. Mira rushed to his side, but Ellis, struggling to speak, told her, "You must leave with Melton. He has misunderstood the situation, and in a way, I am responsible for his elder brother's death." Mira did not want to leave him behind. Her heart ached at the thought of abandoning him in such a state, but she had no choice. Melton, realizing there was nothing more they could do, pulled Mira away and led her outside. Troy had already fallen. There was nothing left to fight for. Meanwhile, Ellis, gravely injured, lay on the battlefield, gasping for breath. His body trembled in pain, and with each passing second, he grew weaker. Eventually, he succumbed to his wounds and died, alone and in agony. As his soldiers gathered around him, grief washed over them. Tears welled up in their eyes. Ellis had been their greatest warrior, the one who had always given them courage and strength. To honor him, they gave him a grand funeral, burning his body with the highest respect. Mira, from a distance, saw the smoke rising into the sky. Her heart sank. She knew that Ellis was gone. He was one in a million, a warrior unlike any other, filled with boundless bravery and honor. King Kin's army also recognized Ellis' greatness. They knew that warriors like him were rare, perhaps never to be born again. But one thing was certain, they would forever remain loyal to his memory. After Ellis' funeral, the soldiers finally took full control over Troy. However, Ellis' teachings did not die with him. His battle skills and abilities were passed down to the next generation. His soldiers hoped that one day, someone as great as Ellis would be born again, someone who could lead them as their king. And with that, our story comes to an end.